The New York Knicks had two all-star starters for the first time in 50 years. So, of course, the league put on the worst all-star weekend possibly of all time. Talking about it right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, as you can find at thestrick.land. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And I want to thank you all for making Locked On Knicks a part of your daily routine today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you letting us into your ears and potentially eyes every single day. Today we are going to be talking about All-Star Weekend. So what happened? What was all that? Maybe you've seen some of it on social media. If you didn't watch it, I sat and watched the whole thing. It was not necessarily fun. The Knicks, though, played pretty well in their limited opportunities to do so. So I'll talk about Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns and what they did. Talk about this new format, which honestly I didn't think was bad, except for how it was presented. So I'm going to make the case for that. Talk about All-Star Saturday night, how Mac McClung is just a crazy, crazy man. Jalen Brunson knocked out of the three-point contest. And then how to fix this mess, because, man, there's a lot of things that could have been done a lot better. And I think whoever at the league decided to turn this into like a beta test should probably be fired, because this is one of their bigger events of the year and they managed to just completely blow it. It used to be something really fun, not really fun anymore. But if you want to hear more about this after listening to this podcast, you could check out the Locked On Knicks Daily newsletter, because your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Knicks Daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. All right, so let's start talking about these All-Star weekend games, and let's talk about the actual games first. So, for those that didn't watch, first off, congratulations. You chose to spend your Sunday night in a better fashion than I did. So that's great for you. However, I'm a little envious because I took it upon myself to watch this thing, to see what was going on with this new format, see how great and or bad it could be, and of course, see what the Knicks were going to do, having two first-time starters and the first duo of starters in 50 years. Of course, they ended up facing each other in the first round, and Karl-Anthony Towns' team knocking out Jalen Brunson's team, which was a little bittersweet, I guess. I appreciate the format. I kind of like the whole idea of like trying to make these guys try by having something on the line. I don't know what exactly was on the line outside of the Rising Stars versus OGs game. It was clear in that one that embarrassment was on the line. As far as the other game, I don't really know. I mean, it seemed like SGA and Wemby really tried hard, which is kind of hilarious because in typical xenophobic fashion, Reggie Miller peddled the old thing of like, oh, the international players don't care as much and blah blah blah, and like this, that, the other. Like, okay, whatever. Like, it seemed like Wemby and SGA and some of the other guys that had Cat, even on that team, cared quite a bit. So I don't know. It didn't really strike me that they didn't care. Wemby certainly was going all out. So whatever. But Cat's team won. Cat had 6 points and 3 boards in the first round. His team won 41-32 over Brunson's team. Brunson had 3 points, 3 assists in just 8 minutes total of All-Star. So the guy gets voted in a starter. Typically, that means you're going to play like 20 to 25 minutes in the All-Star game, perhaps more if you start making a case for yourself as the MVP early. maybe that could have been something that Brunson could have done in a different scenario here, though. I don't know if he really has like all-star MVP vibes to him, because especially in a game like this, it seems like he focuses a little more on getting other people involved than just trying to get his points or whatever. But yeah, only 8 minutes for him in his first all-star start. So that kind of stinks. I mean, he played the whole time for Team Kenny, but just his team ended up losing. Cat had, like I said, 6 points and 3 boards in the first round. I think he played more or less the whole time, if not the whole time. He hit the Brunson celebration after a 3. That was kind of fun. The announcers didn't remark on it at all, but they caught it on replay, and I was like, "That's hilarious!" Like he really like hammed it up and did the whole like the 3 fingers to the nose thing, and then putting it up to the sky, whatever. Like did the whole shebang, the whole Brunson thing. So that was fun. And then Cat's team, the Chuck's International Stars, just got annihilated in the final, 41-25. Cat had 8 points, 4 boards, and 1 assist. He was along with Wemby, like one of the 2 guys that seemed to be sort of trying. Yeah, I don't know. And the biggest issue with guys not trying in that final, unfortunately, I don't think even had to do with the players themselves so much as the league and how they presented this thing. So the new format was, I thought it had potential, which nobody's going to see. They're probably going to scrap it after 1 year because they bungled the presentation so much that everybody hated it. So every time out, whether it was just, and I think I don't know if coaches were actually taking timeouts during the All-Star game. Like it seemed like they were just kind of designed commercial breaks, which is fine. There are TV timeouts in regular games. Like it's fine if you want to just kind of bake in those timeouts, but every time out, like even if it was just like, okay, this team, like in the final, Shaq's team went up like 11-1 or something, and they like took a timeout, and you would think like, okay, maybe they'll like regroup and then they'll come out and maybe they'll actually run a play or something, and that could be cool. Except for then every break was like 20 minutes long. Like they were doing like a whole Super Bowl halftime show between every commercial, and it's just, I don't know, it completely derailed the whole thing. It was just like every single time that you thought, okay, maybe this is building the tiniest bit of momentum, they would just grind it to a screeching halt with some other show that they would have to then set up a stage on the court and have a whole thing and do a whole song and dance routine. Literally, like there was like literal like concerts happening in timeouts. And it's just like, take the hint, guys. Like maybe just play a little bit of basketball. Like honestly, if I was the production coordinator for the NBA, I would have straight up just like axed a couple of the acts. I would have been like, this is clearly not going over well. I know that we paid these people to perform or whatever, but like just pay them and say sorry, and just cancel some of these performances, because it took everything to an absolute screeching halt like multiple times. And I can understand maybe if you want to do a little something like that in between each of the little games, but that's it. I mean, the fact they were doing it in the middle of timeouts and stuff was just crazy. Ultimately, in the end, it kind of just felt like they were hosting like a concert or a comedy show or whatever it is that they were going for, and it just had a little bit of basketball in the middle as a distraction. Like it almost felt like the basketball was the less important thing than all of the other stuff that they were trying to fit in during this broadcast. But it seemed like the players kind of took notice also, because I don't know. I think the first couple games, they seemed maybe a little bit bought into the format. Like the first 2 games were actually close. Like I think it was 41-35 in the Shaq and Rising Stars game. And then it was 41-32 in the Team Chuck versus Team Kenny game. So like, that's cool. It was close enough, where you kind of were like, oh, this is pretty entertaining. But then the final game ends 41-25. And it was like, it was just obvious after the first like huge break that they did, which was just this like huge long self-aggrandizing like 20-minute segment honoring the Inside the NBA guys, which is hilarious. Like I'll get to that in a second, but like it was like the game just kind of got brought to a screeching halt. Like these guys got asked to sit down and like, hey, I know it's an exhibition, but like these guys are warmed up, and like if they get cold, like increases risk for like pulling a hammy or something. You know what I mean? Like that you don't want to like make them sit for 20 minutes in between every, you know, time that they're touching the ball for like 3 minutes. It just doesn't make any sense. And that was kind of, you could sense that the players were kind of getting fed up at a certain point too, as if they weren't already like from the beginning. But like, I give huge props to Steph Curry. Like he actually kind of took it upon himself, like really made it his job to make this thing entertaining in his home city again, and like actually like, put on a show for the fans, which was really nice. But yeah, there was just this total huge segment from the inside the NBA guys, and like LeBron decides to duck out at the last minute. So there's still a lot to talk about, unfortunately, in terms of why this whole thing didn't work. So I'm going to get into that next. Also talk about Jalen Brunson's performance in the 3-point contest where he wound up losing. CP3 and Wemby making a joke of the shooting, or excuse me, not shooting stars, the skills challenge, and Mac McClung just being a really fantastic dunker. So I'll talk about all that in just a moment when we get back in. But first, I got to let you know about our friends over at Hungry Root. And when it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've had this ongoing problem. I just don't have the time because between work, life, and trying to eat healthier, I was constantly feeling stressed out. I go to the grocery store, buy things I didn't need, end up with no time to actually cook, and sticking to my health goals was a struggle too. But everything changed when I discovered Hungry Root. Honestly, it's been a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and nutritionist all in one. They take care of my grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on my tastes and health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part is that every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to my door. It's been a huge time saver and has made healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/lockedonnba and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's hungryroot.com/lockedonnba. Code LOCKEDONNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/lockedonnba. Code LOCKEDONNBA. Don't miss out. All right, let's keep talking through this maybe worst All-Star weekend ever. And that I don't say that lightly, considering some of the slop that has been put on in recent years. But this one was bad. And I want to talk next about this segment that TNT put on, honoring the inside the NBA guys. And like, look, I don't want to minimize the impact that they've had over the years. I think that, I think Ernie Johnson is a legend. I think, I mean, I grew up on that show, like Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley, and then later Shaq. I mean, that's been like, I can remember like when I was really, really getting into basketball when I was like 16, 17 years old, like watching like the Suns in the playoffs or whatever, and staying up past, way past what I probably should have, on a night when I had to go to school the next day or whatever, to watch Inside the NBA after the game and see all the antics they would get into and whatever. And like, I think that's mostly what they've turned into over the years. Is now it's kind of just antics. It's kind of obvious that either the game has passed them by or they just don't really care enough to analyze the game in good faith for what it is anymore. But either way, like, I didn't really understand this giant. I mean, you want to talk about the one that derailed everything the most of anything, was this segment that went for like 20 minutes, I think. I don't even think I'm exaggerating, where it was just a normal timeout in play. And they they have Kevin Hart call out Kenny Smith and Chuck and Ernie and Shaq on the court, and it brings them all out, and then they like do this like weird like award ceremony where they tap dance around the fact that like these guys aren't going anywhere. Like, it's been reported, like, yes, Turner is not broadcasting, TNT, TBS, whatever, is not broadcasting NBA games anymore, but these guys are still going to be working next year. Like, it's already been well reported the show's not going anywhere. Inside the NBA is still going to be produced by Turner. It's still going to be on TV. It's just going to be airing on ESPN because they licensed it out to ESPN. So like it's essentially like we're celebrating like, yay, Warner Brothers Discovery cheaped out and didn't renew their NBA coverage, like, so they're not going to be covering games anymore. Let's feel sorry for the multi-billion dollar, broadcast company that decided not to re-up their broadcast deal, and we're going to spend 20 minutes doing it and do like this whole song and dance, but like, we're sending you guys fishing now, ha ha ha. It's like, no, you're not. They're still employed by the same people. They all signed multi-year deals to still be on this show for a number of years. It's just going to be airing on ESPN. That's it. Like, the only thing that's changing is that people won't have to tune to TNT to watch their games anymore. They're going to now be tuning to ESPN and streaming services and, the whatever, NBC, like whatever. Like, it's not, nothing is actually changing. And on top of the fact that, because of the fact that TNT didn't renew their coverage and then ESPN felt the need to, buy the show up, it's now taking away work from people that have been working at ESPN for years and trying to do their own best job at, providing NBA coverage and being on, pre and post and, halftime shows and whatever. Like, yeah, I don't know. It felt really weird. I didn't understand why this was approached this way and why they felt that. I think it's ultimately just TNT being like, throw a pity party for us because we didn't spend money. Like, I don't know. I think that was it. Maybe LeBron saw the writing on the wall for this one. He dipped like 2 minutes before All-Star was set to happen. So that was fun. So didn't allow a replacement for him on his team, which is honestly slightly better than what Anthony Edwards did, because Anthony Edwards showed up in his warm-ups and everything else and made it seem like he was going to play. And then I guess told his coach of his team, like, I don't want to play. I don't feel good or whatever. Like, oh, I have a lingering injury or something. He just straight up did not appear in his team's game, even though I should remind everyone he was the number one pick by his, actually, two of the number one picks just chose not to play, which is, I guess, just another indictment on this whole thing. Like, they did this whole song and dance with this draft and whatever. LeBron is the number one overall pick. Ant is the number 2 overall pick. And neither guy plays for their team in the All-Star game. So yeah, not I'd be kind of annoyed if I bought a ticket, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, and then I guess the last thing that I'll say on just what actually happened during the games is that there seemed to be just kind of like an unspoken or maybe spoken arrangement from the Rising Stars to the OGs team to just like not actually win. Because I don't know, maybe it was just deference or whatever, or maybe they just realized like nobody actually wants to see us like win this game and make it to the final. I think everybody just although I kind of did. I thought it would be funny. But I think that they realized like people are kind of probably more want to see like Steph Curry than like us or whatever. Or maybe, again, the OGs just went up to them and said, hey, can you guys like not win this game because we don't like this format or whatever, and like we don't want to try that hard or blah blah blah. But like the Rising Stars would be like gaining momentum and like actually playing defense and stuff and like causing turnovers because the All-Stars just kind of wanted to like play an All-Star game like usual. And then all of a sudden they would just decide not to play defense for like 4 possessions and just let them like waltz in for dunks or whatever. Let the OGs, waltz in for dunks or whatever. And it just, I don't know. It seemed like sort of like the fix was in. I don't know. But either way, just the overall production of the All-Star game just was not fun. And I've always been a fan of the All-Star game. Gavin and I went back and forth on whether to do an All-Star episode, and I was like, I'll just do one because it's always been one of my favorite events, and I just felt like this year it came up more short than it's ever come up. That said, Saturday night, somewhat solid. I mean, I don't know. But so first we'll just note, Jalen Brunson gets knocked out in the first round of the 3-point contest. Though, again, I wish they had more. I wish they did like the 3 rounds again. I don't understand why, with the league going towards 3-point shooting and everything, that they're like, let's make this thing shorter. Let's make the 3-point contest the thing that like most people consider to be the highlight event of All-Star Saturday night now. Like, let's make this thing shorter and have one less round than we used to have back when 3-point shooting wasn't as big of a deal. Still doesn't make any sense to me, but Brunson was knocked out in the first round. Tyler Hero wins it. Buddy Hield went nuts. I think he had 31 points in the first round, but ultimately came up a little short to Hero in the final. So, whatever. I don't like Tyler Hero, so he's, whatever. Anyway, then you had the skills challenge where Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama, I mean, CP3 definitely being himself, just decided to try to skirt the rules as much as humanly possible. And so they, the whole point of the thing is you're supposed to, make your bounce pass or whatever, do your little dribble drill. And then you're supposed to like attempt to make 3 shots from 3-point range, and then from the free throw line, and then from the corner. And they just didn't do that. Like, Wemby goes up and just starts flinging the balls into the crowd, and then just does the same thing at the next rack, and then does the same thing at the third rack, grabs the other ball, does the little dribble drill again, goes up, dunks it on the other end, or makes his other pass or whatever the heck he had to do other than that. But like, I don't know. And then Chris Paul does the exact same thing and showing, hey, it was obviously coordinated. Like, they were just like, we're going to get the best time humanly possible. And we're not even going to attempt the jump shots, which is part of the fun. They get booed off the floor, which is hilarious to me because both those guys are like, I mean, especially Wemby, extremely likable in the current NBA landscape. So they managed to completely unendear themselves to the fans, even though they probably had the fans on their side to start things. An aging legend and one of the most exciting young players in the game, and it just kind of was hilarious seeing that they then got disqualified because the league then just kind of stepped in and was like, you guys didn't even make an attempt. Like, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. So, you guys are out. But anyway, then Mac McClung just completely tore it down in the dunk contest. I mean, legitimately some of the best dunks I've ever seen in my life. Like the dunk he kind of just decided to do a bunch of homages to dunk contest past with a bunch of different dunks where he just sort of elevated different things that guys have done. So like he jumps over a Kia, grabs a ball out of someone's hand, and then throws like a spin in for good measure. He jumps over somebody and then does like a very hard 180 in air to throw it down. That was crazy. Does the hoverboard dunk, calling back to like or the Kia dunk, by the way, was calling back to Blake Griffin. Does the hoverboard dunk, calling back to Aaron Gordon, but jumps over someone on a hoverboard, grabs a ball from them, tip dunks another ball that someone was holding on a ladder over the hoop, and then dunks the ball that he grabbed off the guy in the hoverboard. That was crazy. And then the final dunk jumps over Evan Mobley standing on a platform, fully clears him, like no hand on the shoulder, no nothing. Like the dude just jumped over Evan Mobley standing on a platform, grabs the ball, taps it on the rim, and then dunks it. I mean, he was doing so much stuff that like you couldn't even see in real time. And the kid is just he's born to dunk. He's born to dunk a basketball. I mean, just bring him back every single year because that you can't afford to let this kid retire from dunking. Like if this is how he's going to make his money or whatever, up the prize pool. Make it like $1 million or something. Like start giving more money. Maybe that'll incentivize some of the like slightly better younger stars to do it again. But like I don't know. I hope that he managed to inject enough life into it this year where someone significant actually does it next year, which kind of comes into my how to fix the All-Star. So let's take one final break and then I'll come back in and I'll go over my ideas to fix All-Star. But first, I got to let you know about our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because with FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you could even combine your bets into a same-game parlay. For example, I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I'm missing a chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. And if I'm looking at current odds, the Knicks 13.5-point favorites against the Bulls in their return from the All-Star break, I actually I would maybe bet the Bulls to cover in that game. I don't know if the Knicks are going to come out and demolish quite that hard, though. I would love if they did. I just feel like we're going to get like a 7-point win, not a with how the Knicks play the Bulls. So take it or leave it. But anyway, right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. That's fanduel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. So, how do we fix this all-star mess? I can't promise it's going to be the longest segment of all time, but I had some thoughts. And I think the NBA needs to kind of go back to the drawing board on this one. Unfortunately, I think that this format had legs. I like. I think that you could see the outline of this being fun. Unfortunately, the NBA just didn't let it happen. And the biggest thing is don't turn this thing into a giant commercial break, like or a concert or a comedy show or anything other than a basketball game. Like, I could understand wanting to have a little extra entertainment on hand. Fine. They've traditionally had, a pretty robust like halftime show or whatever. They obviously always have the big entrance for everybody where they do the big video screen, like almost like a wrestling Titantron where everybody gets introduced and comes out and, does their little wave and walks over to their team, whatever. Like, cool. That fanfare is fine. It's just like the everything else, man. Like, just they need to make the game not feel like an afterthought. And I thought that they were kind of chugging towards this thing being a little more competitive, and then they just completely derailed it like 5 times by just making these guys sit down for like half an hour in between, and it's like, well, they were all warmed up and they looked like maybe they were trying to compete a little bit, and then you just made them sit for 20 minutes, and now of course they look disinterested. Like, they're not trying to like that. The players are not trying to come here and watch like a concert or a comedy show or whatever, and neither are the fans. So like, who is this servicing at this point? It's like the players are here to play basketball. The fans are here to see the players play basketball, maybe with a little bit of fanfare mixed in. But like, ultimately, basketball should be the selling point. Basketball was not the selling point this year. So first, you got to do that. But then, if they do end up sticking with this format, they need to either switch to like a set time or just give a higher score threshold, because at the end of the day, we saw like 30 total minutes of basketball on like a 3-hour telecast. That's unacceptable. That's crazy. I mean, you have to have. I can understand. Fine, okay, like, you're gonna whatever, like, have your halftime shows and stuff, and your pregame and postgame show, but you got to at least have, you know 48 minutes of basketball. I mean, come on, like, you got to at least give people that. I think maybe the solution is, instead of having a set score, maybe you go with just a time, just straight 24 minutes, something like that, like half a game that also honors Kobe, which I know they like doing on All-Star weekend. Like, they did that with the Elam ending before. They would add 24 to the third quarter score, and that was the target score, which ironically, I like the Elam ending. I didn't think it worked for this one because 40 points just wasn't enough. Like, when you have these guys just waltzing into shooting threes and not being defended, like, yeah, of course they're going to make a ton of them really fast. That's why the last All-Star game was like 200 something to 190 or whatever the heck it was. Like, it just kind of, it's, you need a little more than the 40 points, because they're still clearly not going to put their all into it. So it's not like you're going to get this like where it's like a playoff game where like getting to 40 is going to take you like a full quarter and then some. It's just not like that. So I think, either do that or set the score threshold to like 60 points, 70 points, something like that. Maybe if you want to, again, like honor Kobe, maybe make it games to 81 or something. Like, I don't think anyone would have been complaining if you had 3 like 16 to 20-minute games that went off. I mean, that's all it would have taken at the end of the day. Like, if you look at what the total time was for each game, some of them were over in 8 minutes. So it's like, to double that, 16 minutes, maybe do 81, honor Kobe's 81 points. I don't know. But yeah, just crazily low amounts of basketball, and that needs to be fixed. I actually didn't hate like all of the little interludes. Like, I didn't even really hate the Mr. Beast thing, though. Like, honestly, tell me that kid wasn't a ringer. Like, come on. Like, he's like clanging these shots like off right rim and left rim and whatever else. And then all of a sudden, at the buzzer, big grand moment, makes it to beat Damian Lillard and win 100K. I don't know, man. I know a lot of people like to speculate that Mr. Beast videos are staged. That one, I don't know. I'm like, bro, that was too storybook. I don't know. Maybe it was just a storybook ending. Sometimes the clutch gene just kicks in. But like, I thought it was fine. I thought that was cool. That was like that was like you bring in a huge superstar, in media right now, and then just add him to a tried and true basketball halftime thing. Like, cool, that's fine. I was down with that. I thought that was pretty cool. But they did need to add a little more pep into that, because again, that was just something that just felt like it took like 5 minutes too long. Like, it should have just been, hey, for every 3 shots you take, Dame gets 1 or something. Like, to keep this guy shooting lots of shots, and have Dame just shoot like 1 shot every 3 times he shoots or whatever, and make it so Dame had to make 2 to his 1 or something. Like, it was Dame had to make 3 logo threes, and this kid had to make 1. And whoever got to that number first in a certain amount of time would win. And the kid hit it at the buzzer. So like, whatever. Like, it was fine. It was cool. It just needed to be like a little faster. But I don't know. The other thing is, like, maybe talk to the analysts ahead of time and like work on messaging, because half the studio show was just Draymond Green complaining about the new format, and like basically clutching his pearls as like a former all-star and being like, why are these non-all-stars on the all-star court? This is supposed to be an honor for all-stars, blah, 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 blah. And like, credit to Charles Barkley, who did openly say on the broadcast, like, hey, dumb, like, you guys are the reason that these non-all-stars are on the court now, because you guys didn't take anything seriously, and people were so bored with this freaking game. Like, that used to be a lot of fun, like, where you used to at least get like, the 2 teams would kind of trade their blows throughout the game, and then would at least lock in for like the 4th quarter and play each other somewhat tight, and like seem like they had a little pride in it, like, and so, that was just kind of annoying. Like, Draymond just like complaining the whole time, like, just being like, oh, I hate this new thing. I hate it. It's like, dude, shut up. Like, offer a better solution then, or be like, hey, at least acknowledge, like, hey, I understand that we weren't trying, but maybe the league could have tried something different. Like, I don't know. It just, the fact that he thinks that what they've been doing for the last few years was a good product is telling. But anyway, yeah, I guess the last thing, never let Mac McClung retire dunking. Maybe he'll finally. John Morant was implying on Twitter that he wanted to start, doing the dunk contest now, or maybe would try doing it to face Mac McClung. I think you just need an all-star to finally step into that event. It would bring the intrigue. I will say, like, I think on the surface, at least, the format of having the rising stars versus the all-stars did seem to sort of motivate the all-stars a little bit in that game. So maybe the same deal, like, now that they're seeing Mac McClung just like completely dominate this thing that used to be something for NBA players and even all-stars to do, maybe that motivates, an all-star to finally jump into the dunk contest again. But I don't know. Either way, it was a crappy all-star weekend. I know this wasn't a strictly Knicks episode, but the all-star weekend has always meant something to me. I don't know. It was always like the one thing when I was younger, like, that I would always make a point to watch. Like, I didn't used to watch every Knicks game because they sucked, or, I didn't used to watch every NBA game, because whatever, like, I was a kid, but like, I always made time for the all-star game, and it always seemed to be so much more fun. And just all-star weekend in general, like, that was always blocked out on my calendar of like, I was like 16 years old, whatever. Like, I'm going to watch the dunk contest. I'm going to watch the all-star game. Like, it's so fun. I want to see these dudes like go out and duke it out and dunk on each other and, whatever else. And it just seems like in recent years, it's kind of just fallen off the rails. It almost makes you wonder if the NBA should just nix it at a certain point, but there's too much money to be made. So like, they kind of have to fix it. They didn't fix it this year. So NBA, do better. And yeah, we'll be back talking Knicks tomorrow. So we'll have you guys covered with that. But anyway, thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.